Committee wants a congressional investigation into the death of Trayvon Martin. In a letter to the committee chair, Illinois Congressman Luis Gutierrez wrote, "When any child is gunned down and no one goes to jail, it is incumbent on lawmakers at the highest level of government to investigate whether justice has been done, whether the underlying law is just, and whether federal legislation could help avoid another tragic death like the death of Trayvon Martin." I'm joined now by Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez. Good to see you, Congressman. Good morning.
Pleasure to be with you.
What would you hope to accomplish with this hearing?
Bring hearings and bring light. The House of Representatives and the Judiciary Committee hasn't had one hearing. In the Senate, there have been hearings on gun violence in our society, and I'd like to take this opportunity, this moment, to highlight the fact that the Senate is silent. I think I have the same gut reaction as most Americans. A teenager went out, an adult killed him with a gun, and nobody's being held responsible for that death. And I think it speaks to, in America, I'd like to have a hearing about why in America people feel more and more a necessity to arm themselves, and they feel more and more in fear of their fellow Americans. And, I get the point that if you want to defend your home, and you're going to use a gun to defend your home, I get that. But when stand your ground means you don't retreat, when stand your ground causes the death of a teenager, I think it's time to examine just everything that happened that day in Florida.
As you know, not everyone feels the way you do, and I want to play what one of your colleagues, Maryland Congressman Andy Harris, had to say in a radio interview about what the reaction has been to this verdict.
With all the huge issues going on in the world, with unrest in the Middle East, we're hung up on this one case where this one fellow was in fact found not guilty by a jury. That's the way the American law system works. Get over it.
What do you say, Congressman, to those who think too much is being made of this?
I think that we live in a society that is more and more violent. And today it's Trayvon, and tomorrow it could be your son and your daughter, that when teenagers go out to buy some Skittles and a soda and they can't come back home because there's a confrontation. Let's realize one thing. He never committed a crime. He never did anything wrong. He was confronted by an adult. And if stand your ground means you get to confront someone and it gets out of hand and you get to use a gun to kill them, I think it's time for the Congress to act. Look, I think we need to put this. I think the congressman from Maryland is totally incorrect. There are thousands upon thousands of deaths every year due to gun violence in my city of Chicago. I think we need to have hearings. They're having them in the Senate. So I'd like to put them in the context. Look, there was a trial. There was a verdict. I respect the trial. I respect the verdict and that process. That doesn't mean that the Congress of the United States and the House of Representatives hasn't had one hearing on gun violence in America. And I would like to put this within the context. And I hope that the Judiciary Committee takes us up. I think it's an important issue. He speaks about what's going on in Iraq and in other parts of the world. Those things are important, but you know what? What's important to me also is that my daughter can leave my home and that I know she'll be returning safely and she won't be gunned down, and that there won't be gun violence either by gangbangers or vigilantes that will stop her from ever coming home to me again.
I want to ask you about one other important issue, because you're part of the bipartisan committee working on immigration reform in the House. Politico reports that the Senate Gang of Eight has met with big companies, Google, Microsoft. They're planning a coordinated campaign to target more than 100 House Republicans on reforming immigration laws when they're home in their districts over the next month. And I'm wondering where you think immigration reform stands right now. President Obama, as I'm sure you know, has just pushed his deadline back to the fall.
Sure. Look, here's what I think. We had a wonderful meeting with the president yesterday. I hope the senators do lots of great work. What we cannot do is impose the Senate version on the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is going to create its own version of comprehensive immigration reform. In the Senate, the majority are Democrats. In the House, the majority are Republicans. What we have to have is a bipartisan. Otherwise, it can turn partisan, and I don't want that to happen. I think anything the senators can do to inform both Republicans and Democrats in the House of Representatives about why comprehensive immigration reform is necessary. But I want to build with Paul Ryan and with others a bipartisan consensus just like the one they look how successful we were in the Senate. The president didn't come and say, here's my bill, take it or leave it. No, he stood back and said, anytime I can, he'll congratulate. He facilitated a process. I think that's the role of the president of the United States, to allow and to foster bipartisanship, and it has to happen in the House of Representatives. The Republicans are in control of the Judiciary Committee, of the Rules Committee, and of the agenda in the House of Representatives. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to acknowledge that they have opinions too. So why don't we all just get together, Republicans and Democrats, and finally do something in a bipartisan way that helps the American people achieve at least some modicum of new respect for us.
Congressman Gutierrez, always good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.